Okay, try and picture this. Gaslight, flickering on these wet, slick streets, fog so thick you can barely see.
Hmm.
That was Whitechapel, late 1800s. But it wasn't just the fog making things feel chilling. There was this faceless killer, Jack the Ripper.
A really, really unsettling time. That autumn, 1888.
Mm.
It just brought this wave of absolute terror. 5 women, Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly.
Right.
They became what we now call the Canonical Five.
Canonical, yeah. That just means the ones sort of officially accepted, right? The core victims in this horrible sequence.
Exactly. The ones most strongly linked together by the evidence and the time frame.
And it's amazing, isn't it? Over a century later, and that name, Jack the Ripper, it still has this grip on us.
It really does.
If you're into true crime or history or just, a mystery you can't quite crack, this case just pulls you in.
Absolutely. It's got all those elements.
So yeah, that's our plan today. We're going to take a deep dive, look at what we actually know, what London was like then, the backdrop.
The social conditions, yeah. Crucial context.
Then the women themselves, their stories. Then the investigation or the struggles with it, the suspects.
Always fascinating, the suspects.
And just why we're still talking about it, the legacy, the questions that linger. Okay, let's peel back the layers here.
Right. Well, London in the late 19th century, it was a city of massive contrasts. Huge wealth, but also incredible poverty, especially in the East End.
Whitechapel being ground zero for that, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. Crushing poverty, people packed in like sardines, and a lot of crime. It was just rife.
And these conditions, they almost created the perfect hunting ground, didn't they, for a killer?
In a grim way, yes. It provided a kind of anonymity. Shadows, hidden corners. It was easier to operate, maybe, than in a more open, well-policed area.
And the murders themselves, I mean, the reports are just horrific. It's hard to even describe the level of violence.
Oh, absolutely brutal. Vicious throat wounds, the disembowelment, and this really disturbing detail about organs being removed.
Yeah, that precision. It
Yeah.
suggests something more than just frenzy, doesn't it? Something calculated.
That's exactly the point many have made. It hints at a certain knowledge,
Yeah.
perhaps. And the fear, well, it wasn't just in Whitechapel.
No, it spread.
Oh, definitely. The whole city was terrified. Panic set in. People were locking their doors, looking over their shoulders. The newspapers fueled it too, of course.
I can imagine. And the police. They must have been completely overwhelmed.
They faced enormous challenges. Whitechapel itself, like we said, all those dark alleys, courtyards, rookeries. It was a maze.
Easy to get lost, easy to hide.
Very. Plus, think about their tools. No DNA testing, no fingerprint database as we know it. Very basic forensic science.
Right. No CCTV on every corner.
Exactly. They were relying on eyewitness accounts, which were often contradictory or unreliable, and basic detective work. It was incredibly difficult terrain.
It really puts into perspective how tough that investigation must have been.
And this whole period, it's just such a stark reminder, isn't it, about how vulnerable people on the margins were and still can be.
Yeah.
These women were facing desperate situations. And the Ripper, his crimes just tore the lid off some ugly truths about Victorian society. The poverty, the desperation, the darkness lurking beneath the surface.
Let's talk about the victims. The canonical five: Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly.
It's so important we remember their names.
Yes, they weren't just statistics, were they? They were individuals trying to survive in really, really harsh circumstances.
Absolutely. Courageous women dealing with the grim realities of their time and the way they died. As we mentioned, the throat wounds, the abdominal mutilations, the specific removal of organs in some cases.
Yeah, the organ removal is key, isn't it? That's what often leads to the speculation about medical knowledge.
Precisely. The postmortem reports from the time detail this, and it strongly suggests the killer had, at the very least, a basic understanding of human anatomy, maybe more.
Which must have added another layer of terror for people back then. Not just a random attacker, but someone with skills.
Exactly. That level of brutality, combined with what seemed like methodical precision, it genuinely terrified London. It wasn't just murder. It felt like something else, something colder, more calculated.
You can see why it caused such widespread panic and this deep sense of unease.
And that legacy, it just hasn't faded. These horrific events, the lives cut short, they still fascinate people. People interested in unsolved cases, yes, but also maybe in that search for justice, however delayed.
It's a dark chapter we keep returning to, trying to understand it.
Definitely.
Okay, so the investigation. You touched on the challenges, the environment, the lack of tech. It sounds like an uphill battle from day one.
It really was. The sheer number of people living in Whitechapel, many moving around frequently. Tracking leads was a nightmare. Despite that, though, several names did rise to the surface as serious suspects.
Right. Let's get into the suspects. Aaron Kosminski is one you hear a lot.
Yes. A Polish immigrant lived right in the thick of it in Whitechapel. He's often cited, particularly in more recent years.
But the evidence...
Largely circumstantial at the time. There was some police suspicion, identification difficulties. Later on, there was DNA analysis attempted on a shawl supposedly found near one victim, Catherine Eddowes.
Ah, yes, the shawl. That created a buzz, didn't it?
It did. But the provenance of the shawl, how it was stored for over a century, the potential for contamination, it means those DNA results are, well, heavily debated.
So not quite the smoking gun people hoped
They're
for.
far from definitive, scientifically speaking. Then you have Montague John Druitt.
The barrister, right. What was the story there?
Well, the timing was suspicious. He reportedly took his own life shortly after the last canonical murder, Mary Jane Kelly's. That coincidence put him firmly on the police radar.
That is suggestive timing.
It certainly is, and investigators at the time took it seriously. But again, like with Kosminski, they never found concrete proof directly linking him to the actual crimes. He's a strong person of interest, but unproven.
Okay. And there was an American, Francis Tumblety.
Yes, often described as a quack doctor. Definitely an eccentric character, apparently had a known dislike of women, collected medical specimens.
Sounds like someone the police would definitely want to talk to.
He did. His unusual behavior and background made him a person of interest, but you've seen the pattern here.
No hard evidence.
Exactly. Nothing solid to definitively pin the murders on him or any of the main suspects, really. Lots of suspicion, lots of theories, but no conclusive identification.
And that's the crux of it, isn't it? Why it remains such a mystery. The limits of investigation back then, the chaos of Whitechapel, it just meant the killer slipped through the net.
Precisely. And that very anonymity, the fact that he was never caught, never identified, ironically, that's a huge part of why the Ripper story has lasted.
The name itself, Jack the Ripper. It's become almost like the archetype, hasn't it? The blueprint for the shadowy serial killer in books and movies.
It absolutely has. It conjures up immediate images, the fog, the gaslight, the terror.
Yeah, it's powerful imagery, but it's so important, like you said earlier, to remember this wasn't just some gothic horror story. These were real crimes with real victims, and they revealed some very ugly things about society then.
They really did. The murders threw this harsh light on the appalling conditions in places like Whitechapel, the desperate poverty, the vulnerability, especially for women.
Issues that were maybe easier to ignore until something this sensational happened.
Perhaps. It forced people, at least for a time, to confront these deep social inequalities. And in a way, the ongoing fascination maybe still pushes us to think about those kinds of systemic problems.
That's a good point. And maybe that's partly why the theories just keep coming, because there is no answer. People keep trying to find one.
Oh, the theories are endless. It's practically a cottage industry. You hear everything, don't you?
Yeah, connections to royalty, suggestions it was a doctor or a surgeon because of the way the bodies were mutilated.
Those are some of the classics. The lack of a clear answer just fuels speculation. Amateur detectives, serious historians, everyone has a pet theory.
It's quite something. People poring over old police files, census records, trying to piece it together even now.
The pull of the unsolved mystery is incredibly strong.
Absolutely. And I guess ultimately the story sticks with us because it is unsolved and because the crimes were just so brutal.
Yes. As the historical accounts really stress, it's that combination. It's a chilling reminder, isn't it? Of the fragility of order and the fact that darkness can exist, well, anywhere.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap where we've been in this deep dive. We looked at Whitechapel, that Victorian backdrop.
The historical context, yeah.
The tragic stories of the 5 canonical victims, remembering them as people.
Very important.
The police investigation, all the immense hurdles they faced.
The lack of technology, the environment.
The main suspects, Kosminski, Druitt, Tumblety, intriguing, but ultimately unproven.
Right. Lots of smoke, no fire.
And this enduring legacy, this fascination that just doesn't seem to go away.
Which leads us, I suppose, to a final thought for you, listening.
Yeah. When you think about everything, the social conditions back then, how limited the police were, and the fact that this mystery still isn't solved.
What does the whole Jack the Ripper saga really tell us about how we understand crime, how we pursue justice, even today, in our own time?
It's definitely something to think about, isn't it? A question that still hangs in the air, much like that Whitechapel fog.